Okay, great. All right, so thank you everybody for being here. This is the July 8th Buncombe County Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. I appreciate everyone being here. I'm Allison Daines. I'm the Parks Director. We've had our chair has resigned, so as such, I've just been asked to step in to kind of oversee the meeting as we move forward. And so just want to kind of start with a roll call. If you just give your name and if you know what district or area that you represent, you could do that. And we'll start with you, Ingrid, if that's all right.
Perfect. Yeah.
Sorry, no, we're going to start with that person now.
Ingrid Johnson, on the board and believe with District 3. Yeah. So glad to be here. Thanks, Joe.
Lena Richards, soon to be former member of the advisory council and Inca Camp Minister. And Babcock and represent District 3. Liz Water, Recreation Operations Manager.
I'm David Burdett, and I don't remember this, but I'm in the eastern part of Buncombe County.
Yep.
I should know the one over last week.
Joseph Guzman, Buncombe County Project Manager, Parks.
Adam Zinke, Office Manager for Parks.
Great. So you have the May 13th, 2025 advisory board meeting minutes from the last meeting. And so just wondering if I have a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Great. Thank you, David. And a second. Thank you, Lena. So those will be approved. Any other comments about anything on those minutes? I think they were pretty. All right. So we'll start off with the director's report. So a big thing that I want to make sure that everyone is aware of, and I hope that some of you can attend. July is Parks and Recreation Month. So every year across the United States, we recognize July as Parks and Recreation Month to thank Parks and Recreation professionals for all the work that they do and all that Parks and Recreation brings to lives of people in their communities. And so we'll be doing a proclamation on July 15th at the Board of Commissioner meeting, which is at 5 o'clock. And just so that you know that those proclamations are usually at the beginning of the meeting. So it should happen within the first like 15 minutes of the meeting. So for anybody that could be there, that would be great to show support as the proclamation's given to us. So we're excited for that. The other thing that we're very excited about, welcome to July. We're excited for a new fiscal year. The budget has been approved. And the Parks and Recreation Department is excited that we've got one of our large capital projects was included in that budget. So on the back side of Lake Julian, off of the Hendersonville Road side entryway, that restroom, which was about 50 years old, is going to be renovated this year. So we were very excited that that made the cut. So very happy about that. And also the majority of what we had in our budget has remained. So budgets were pretty much went back to the fiscal year of 2024. Our staff is really savvy and has done a really great job of putting forward a good solid budget that still gets recreation programming out there, also still allows for some basic maintenance as well as a few added amenities. And so we're excited about some of the new amenities that are coming online. And I'll let Joseph talk about a little bit of those later. The other big update that I wanted to give is a Greenway update. So we have 3 Greenway projects. 2 of them are part of the Woodfin Greenway. One is the Highway 251 section of Greenway. The other is the Beaver Dam Creek section of the Greenway. And then we have the Anka Heritage Trail. So once the hurricane hit, obviously some of those alignments were adversely affected, and we lost some land mass along the projected alignments for all of those areas. More so some than others. The consultants that we're working with, we asked all of them to submit a new scope of work to reevaluate what current alignment was there, and then to do added outreach to the community. And so I'm excited that the Highway 251 section is moving forward. They've submitted on their new scope of work. That new scope of work has been approved through the NCDOT. Just so that you know, none of this comes with additional funds from the NCDOT. So all additional work that is being done, the county will need to account for in some manner. For the Beaver Dam Creek section, the submission, we're working on the submission with the NCDOT. We're working on getting that approved. And have not yet had approval for that. So what that means is that that project is just kind of suspended right now until the new scope of work gets approved by the NCDOT. And so we can't do any work on that project until they say, yes, we approve this new scope of work, and they do all the sign offs, and then it goes through commission, and then they sign off it. That one had a little bit more money that is going to be required as well. And so we'll have the extra step of needing to figure out how we're going to fund that project. The Inca Heritage Trail is in a little bit different situation. We did have an added scope for realignment there as well. We are working with the Inca Partners, which is the primarily landowners along that alignment. And we're continuing to have conversation and meeting negotiations with them. As along that alignment, there's a couple of parcels of land that were originally to be a part of this, and they are now wanting to discuss what that looks like now, because there's other potential for them in those parcels of land. So we're just having conversations about how to come together on an alignment that we both agree with, because right now we're not in agreement with what that alignment should be. And so we'll keep moving that forward. But I do want to go back to the Highway 251 section, because I think it's really important that you know that we're meeting with the consultant, and that their first order of business is to go along that alignment and see what is truly feasible now, because as I said, there are some areas that have washed away. And so the alignment is going to need to change significantly. It doesn't mean that it necessarily can't be done. It just means that the alignment is going to need to change. And we're also working with our partners at Riverlink. For those of you that are interested and understand how greenways are built, greenway, the requirement for any kind of leeway in between a greenway is typically like 10 feet. So you're like need to be at least 10 feet off of like a water's edge. We're having negotiations where the riparian area needs to be more like 30 feet, which will significantly change any alignment for a greenway. It doesn't mean that you can't do greenways. There may be areas where that's less significant, but based on what we've seen, the impacts of these hurricanes and the flooding, and knowing that that's going to continue, seeing where we can, have a really large area of riparian buffer, so that when flooding occurs, we don't see the kind of things that we're seeing, like through the RAD. You can tell where those greenways were washed away in certain areas and where they actually maintained. And where they maintained was when they were significantly farther away from the water. So we'll be having a lot of conversations about how to make that alignment and how to find a medium place where we're doing the best we can for the riparian buffer, but we're also creating that connection, because I think that's still really important. And I have one other report, and then I'll ask if you have any questions about what I've said. The other thing is we've got 2 positions that have been opened and closed, our principal park planner position, and then our parks facility supervisor positions have been vacated, and we have advertised those positions. The advertisement for those have closed, and we've got a good number of qualified applicants for each position. And so over the next probably month to month and a half, we'll be going through the applications, and we have a process where we we'll do our interviews and evaluation, and then we go through the hiring process. So that full process can take anywhere from a month and a half to 2.5 months. But we're working as fast and furious as we can to bring those people in line. Because in the meantime, it means people like Joseph and Liz are taking on a great deal of additional work. And so I really want to give them a shout out for really stepping up and taking on some of those additional supervisor duties and projects that are going on. And so it's been really amazing. Appreciate them. So that's the director's report. Are there any questions about what I've said? Because I know I said a lot about greenways and other things. So is there any questions or anything specific that you want me to take into account or I can answer for y'all?
Can I go back and ask you about the budget?
Yeah.
Is that pretty much where it's always been? Is it increased? Or is it-
Yeah, the budget is, so the budget for greenways, the way that, I'm really glad you asked about the budget for greenways. The budget with greenways is the NCDOT allots, they say, okay, based on this project, you know, we think it's a $4.5 million project. So I think that's what it is. And I'm happy to give those numbers very specifically. We can send those out and I will do that so you can see them. I want to say it's about 4.5 million for Highway 251 section. And then the county contributes 20%. And if you remember, the county also had the bond funds and money was designated from the bond funds to complete the budget for the Highway 251 section. So that was complete based on what we knew at the time in that moment. And so now we've got to wait until this new alignment comes back and the new engineering that says, okay, where we were was good, or we're going to need additional bridges here. We're going to need new alignments over here. We need to do some more environmental testing here now. We need to do new hydraulics because the hydrology of the river and the alignment has changed. The important thing to know is that the money doesn't get, like, it's a reimbursable. So sometimes people think like the state or the federal government just gave us money and it's in the bank. That's not how that works at all. The way that it works is we're given X amount of dollars per milestone. And the very first large amount of money that gets spent on any greenway project is engineering and design. So you have what's called P&E, right? And it's planning and engineering. And so that's the first chunk of money. And once you have your full engineering design, because the alignment is part of that, then it unlocks the next set of money. And then you can apply for reimbursement for that first set of money. So we've not gotten any money back on what we've spent because we've not hit the threshold yet. And so then once we get through preliminary engineering, then you go to right of way. And then right of way is, again, for, I believe it's 24 individual owners along the Highway 251 section. And you have to negotiate some fees for that. Sometimes it's an exchange, just kind of depends. Once you finish right of way and you pay out people for whatever that may be, then you can go for reimbursement. It closes that, and then you go into design. So that's the way that the county is building greenways. Not all greenways are built that way, but when you build greenways through the NCDOT and locally administered projects, that's the cycle in the system that gets that done.
So would it be accurate to say that Helene put back the Greenway project for the county by 5 years?
I hope not. I hope not 5 years. I would say right now, the Highway 251 section, our consultant is hoping that he can get that construction going within 2 years. Whereas we were scheduled to start construction in 2 years. Whereas we were hoping to start construction by the end of this year. So it's put us back a couple of years for sure. Not necessarily 5, hopefully.
I've heard that number.
Yeah. Any other questions or anything you want to know about?
I was just curious at like a technical question around where you were talking about the like setbacks from water, like who's the determining body that like that makes the determination.
Oh, yeah, that's really great. So
Yeah.
for the state, they have just standards.
Okay.
So they create the minimum standard, and that's that 10-foot
Okay.
minimum that comes into being. And then you have conversations with experts that work with waterways
Uh-huh.
and people like Riverlink that kind of understand how waters move. And so those are not regulations that you have to abide by, but they are recommendations based on best practices and the best thing for the environment as well as the amenity and the infrastructure. Yeah.
I have a question, about- you may have answered this when I wasn't here.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
You set the budget for 2026, and one of the things I'm curious about, this greenways and everything, I know the Charles D. Owen Park was destroyed. So how much of the budget is going to repair things we already had versus for building new greenways? Like, is our budget for 26 affected by the claim still? I mean, I know we still have stuff that's not.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that because of the hurricane and because it was a federal funded disaster, like FEMA is in here and they're coming and we are submitting projects for reimbursements.
Okay.
And so our budget itself, our fiscal year budget, does not have Helene projects in the budget. So all of those projects are in a separate hurricane relief fund that the county is using, and then we'll get reimbursed. And so that's a really good question
Right,
for
so like,
clarifying.
we're not gonna have
No,
anything like, we're not gonna
Yeah.
run, we're not cutting a program.
no, we're not cutting anything for that. Yeah. And Owen is a great example of that. We put out a request for qualifications for that. And money has been set aside in a separated account, Hurricane Helene account, for us to be able to enter into that contract once we finish contract negotiations. So, I'm kind of taking Joseph's thunder, but I'll let him talk about that. We're not naming any, we're still in contract negotiations, so we
Right.
can't name anyone that's done it yet, but,
I mean, that's just, I know
We're
that's something
working
I was
towards
wondering,
that.
I'm just,
yeah, it's just a good example.
Right.
And even some of the amenities, so we have purchased some new amenities. We lost tables and benches and trash cans. And those have already been purchased and we've started reinstalling, and none of those came out of our budget.
Right.
That's all come out of hurricane relief for reimbursement.
People likes to see things in small projects, so one of those components are actually easier to get covered for larger projects.
Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah, so that's a really good question. Any other questions? All right, I'm taking up a lot of the time. We'll go straight into Joseph. He's got some updates for us about park status and projects, so I'll let Joseph go ahead.
Yeah, so we're getting slowly but surely getting all the parks back open. Currently Carpenter Fields, Owen Park, and then Alexander and Walnut, the only closed parks. We got Ledges back open. We have a crew going to start at Walnut, but we can't say when we'll be able to open up Walnut. There's a lot of vegetation that we'll have to have regrowth on. So they might be able to get in there and clean it up, but then we'll have to try to get something grown there. And then Alexander is going to be a larger scale project because of the amount of land lost. So that project will probably have to go through the RFQ process as well. And then Glen Bridge is open. There is a note that the gate might be closed. That's only because paving might happen to fix that little divot. If you guys have been there, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's kind of a quick rundown of the park status. But going up to project updates that kind of relate to that park status. The RFQ for Owen Park, like she mentioned, has been closed. We have done the review process and we're starting contract negotiations. We can't publicly say who got that yet until we're underneath the contract because we might not reach an agreement. So then we go to the next firm. I can say we did have 11 firms submit for that. So there's a lot of interest on that project, which is good. Very large firms as well. So, and then Hominy River Park, that RFQ closed July 2nd, and we had 9 firms submit for that project. And that's looking at the redesign of the peninsula behind the fenced in area. So there's a lot that's gonna be involved in that Hominy River Park. One of the biggest things is, it is on a conservation easement. So understanding what we can put there, and then also understanding how we can use HMGP funds, such as hazard mitigation, hazard grant mitigation projects through FEMA to help re-establish the bank there on both Hominy Creek and French Broad River Park. And then we also want to investigate traffic pattern. If you guys have been to Hominy River Park on a Saturday, it's quite busy with tubers and it gets kind of crowded in there. And then the landfill too, backing up that road. So trying to figure out something we can do in there.
Is that whole thing gonna be kind of one big park after it's redesigned? So it'll flow into each other.
It will, and we'll tear down that fence when we get to that stage. The fence is kind of just there right now to keep people out of that area, for the time being. But yeah, the plan is, yes, to have that all as one park together. So that will be an exciting project. We will start reviewing those submittals this month and hopefully have a contract early next month. So the turf project update at the Buncombe County Sports Park, that was ECA Phase 2. It is going to bid at the end of this month. So process, you know, is kind of like what we're doing with the other parks. You get a designer, they design the whole thing, and then you bid it out to the actual construction company. Lowest bid gets the project. So we're gonna bid that out at the end of this month. And then we'll have a construction firm, and then they'll be trying to figure out when they can get started. So, the waterways, Army Corps cleanup, they are not using any of our waterways anymore. We have gotten back all of our river parks. So that's exciting. Sadly, once again, Alexander and Walnut need a lot of help. So it was good to get places like Glen Bridge back though, where we were able to open them up pretty quickly. So that was good. And then also, me and Allison have a meeting at the end of this week about Cane Creek soccer fields, where that huge debris site was at. We've been told they're gonna help us fix it back to what it was before, so we'll see what that looks like. As you know, that was a debris site for 9 months, so probably. So that Cane Creek will be closed for the foreseeable future until we get to grass, make it into a field again. But the pool was open and the playground and everything there. So, disc golf signage. We got new disc golf signs out at Lake Julian. So that was fun. And then we got signs that we're working on for the Buncombe County Sports Park. So I thought my disc golf guy would be here, but Derek came bothering. Docks at Lake Julian. So that was one of those projects that we're actually funding through FEMA. Basically through those hazard mitigation funds. FEMA wants to see how you can build back better. So a lot of those docks that were damaged at Lake Julian were the old wood docks that aren't made to rise up and down lake level. And they're giving us permission to go forward with getting new floating docks. They're called easy docks, that can go with the level of the lake. So, as you guys know, at Lake Julian, we actually got a huge amount of water. Then the dam broke, the flash boards broke, and then it dropped down. So a lot of those wood docks just cracked apart. So that will be kind of a huge project once we get that stuff in. You know, we put the PO through a couple weeks ago and it's just building it and everything like that. FEMA update. I'm writing these hazard mitigation plans that we're submitting to FEMA for each of our river parks and also Lake Julian and Carpenter Fields. And this plan will hopefully, once FEMA reviews it, they have a kind of a guideline book that I have to match it off of. They review it and then they're say, okay, we approve this part, this part, and this part, and we can help fund this part and this part through their hazard mitigation team. So we're working with them on that plan right now. And then yeah, just a quick wave update. It's mainly a Town of Woodfin project, but I'm on the sidelines for it, keeping involved so the county can keep eyes on it. The coffer dam, you know, it withheld 89% during the hurricane, which is insane.
It really is.
Pretty amazing.
The firm that actually built it is now being consulted by other companies for other large scale projects, because they're like, how did that thing hold up 89%? So they fixed it up, and they've dewatered, and now they're drilling into the bedrock of the river. They kind of have this thing called an elephant drill, and it goes down and makes the bedrock look like Swiss cheese. And then a caterpillar with a hammer attachment comes to the side and knocks it down, and then they scoop it out. So once they get that bedrock down low enough, they'll place the actual wave structure using boulders. It's going to be 3 different size boulders stacked up on one another, and that will create your wave structure.
Will they be secured?
They are, well, they're deep enough into the bedrock and wedged in there to a way that they are secure. Yeah, and then they flip it around, and they're gonna do the same on the other side for the cofferdam and the wave and
What is
everything.
the estimated completion date?
It's hard to say. It's probably gonna be early next year. They're hoping end of this year, but the bedrock is harder than they thought. Yeah, in the bottom of the river, so it's taking a little bit longer to drill through that rock. So realistically, probably next year. And also weather. We get another heavy rain. Every time there's a heavy rain event, they have to move all their equipment up the hill, and yeah. But
And Joseph, you said that's a city of Woodfin project,
It's a
but
city-
one that you're just working on.
yeah, we've been kind of with them along the way on it. We have mainly the greenway component of that project, like Allison was talking about earlier. That's the 251 greenway.
Yep.
But Woodfin early on was, welcoming to having me just in on meetings and.
Okay,
But it is managed by the town of Woodfin.
That's part of the larger Woodfin Greenway Blueway project, the WGB, and so that's where the county and the town are working simultaneously and in coordination with each other, so.
it's under their, like, the city of Woodfin budget, but y'all are working.
Yeah,
like, in conjunction.
they've got the piece from the TDA that is for the wave, and we have the piece that's for the Greenway.
Gotcha.
So yeah, any questions about any of that? Kind of threw a lot at you all at once. We're moving in the right direction. Luckily, I didn't touch on these little components, but she kind of did earlier. We're getting trash cans, picnic tables back. And we're able to kind of replace some of the things we lost already. Got some new paddle boats coming in for the lake. It was funny, we didn't know all the paddle boats had holes in them because, the storm hit, then it got winter time. And then the boat started going out into the water and sinking. So we were able to submit for 6 of those back. And we did, speaking on that FEMA update real quick, we did receive early numbers from FEMA on Lake Julian, Alexander, and Ledges. But that's not our complete number because there's all this hazard mitigation that we're gonna be studying. So, yeah, they also have other things like categories, like the paddle boats are considered a category, so we have a lot of different things we can submit.
Just out of curiosity, how much money is FEMA be putting into parks and greenways and?
I don't think we don't have a finalized number yet.
Is it
Um,
significant?
Oh, yes, it's millions of dollars, like just cost estimates. We're in the tens of millions of
And
dollars.
this is just
that
Parks
would be there.
Recreation Greenway.
Yeah, that's just parks. And then when you add erosion control and hazard mitigation and such, then you're up in the hundreds, potentially of millions of dollars.
How does the hazard mitigation work? It's coming in and test the soil and stuff?
No, so they actually, when we did our site visits way back when, they had a hazard mitigation team. Usually it's, a geologist sometimes, or people that, their whole life is looking at erosion. So they were taking notes, making plans, suggesting things while we we're on site. Like, for example, how many of the women said, we need to build this bank back, and writes it down. And then now at this point, I make a plan based off those site visits, and then we submit that to FEMA, and they get back with their hazard mitigation team, and they say, okay, these make sense, we'll fund these don't make sense, we're not gonna fund those.
So let me ask you a question. Let's say that our hazard mitigation team decides there's something we need to do and FEMA says they don't fund it. What do we do then?
It's,
That hasn't happened yet.
there's
It
other,
hasn't. Yeah, there's other funding sources.
funding
though.
sources.
Yeah.
For example, we met with, the Department of Agriculture out at Owen Park.
Yeah.
So there's other federal and state funds that we can tap
That's
into.
it. FEMA's like the spring.
Yes. Yep.
And there is a position posted, I think it's closed, for the county to hire somebody that really is focused in on those different funding sources.
Yeah,
We'll be working
They
with
don't
them.
go out like when they need funds.
yeah, they'll be helping with that. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah,
Based on Helene damage.
In future, I mean, I don't know how long the position is funded for, but I know that they say it takes up to, it takes at least 6 years to really see all the funding come in.
yeah.
So.
And the county has been working with our local partners and other municipalities, particularly on like erosion control. Like there is a group of us that are meeting on a regular basis to talk about waterways throughout the county. And how we can be supporting each other and where projects need to be individual entities and when we can come together as a collective in order to maximize our resources and people that are doing good things.
Because the water doesn't know this, they don't know like.
Exactly, yeah,
This one's in town, this one's not.
yeah.
And there's funny random funding sources, like I saw an article about in Yancey County where somebody paid for drones to drop seed in public parks that were damaged by the river.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of little,
But it has to be done by June.
yeah. That was funny, but it's funny, okay.
We gotta do.
There you go, there you go.
But yeah, if anybody doesn't have any questions, I'll pass it off to Bruce.
All right, I think last time we met, we were in full swing of spring programming and events. Things have slowed down for us a bit. We do have our core program, our 55 Plus Club and birding, which are ongoing. 55 Plus Club is our new program. We're building traction. We're in the 4th month of it, and we hope to continue to grow participation and try to figure out what activities are best, what is the best timing for that age group, and that type of thing. We did have a number of events the last 2 months. We had a kids fishing tournament, which was great. I think we had over 80 participants. We had a bike rodeo and cookout at Piscaview, which is the first time we'd ever done that. We partnered with our department, our Human Rights and Equity Office, and the Asheville Housing Authority, Read to Succeed, and Marvelous Math on that. So that was really successful, and we're looking to do future events with them as well. We also partnered with Grovemont, Friends of Grovemont Park and the Swannanoa Community Council, and had the first annual Swannanoa Family Fest, which was a great success for that community out at Grovemont Park. We had a camp out scheduled, but unfortunately it was during the time where we were having a lot of thunderstorms and a lot of heavy rains, and the heavy rains were affecting, we had poor drainage at Lake Julian, which we're still addressing. And then due to the concern of the thunderstorms, it was unfortunately canceled. Then this past Friday, we had a great 4th of July event, fireworks and a day of fun at the park. Coming up, we have a new activity. We're going to do a raft / kayak trip with Mountain True from Glen Bridge to Bend River Park, Red Creek River Park. So that's July 18th at 10 a.m. So if you're interested in that, you can sign up online. And then we also have our fishing club, fall camp out, and then hopefully in the future, we'll also be doing some kayak tours on Lake Julian. We were awarded $10,700 from the North Carolina Amateur Sports with a youth sports grant for mountain bike fleet and equipment. And so that will also go before the board on the 15th to accept the grant and amend the budget. And then
And big kudos to Liz for submitting that grant and getting a $10,700 grant for a new bike fleet is really amazing and awesome.
So we're
Yeah.
excited, obviously, to get those bikes, like Allison said, but it'll also allow us to offer more programming. And then I guess we did have a number of athletes from our swimming, bowling, and gymnastics team from Special Olympics attend the summer games the first weekend of June. So that was a great experience for all of them. And then just kind of in general update, our pools are really busy. Rec Park pool is closed, as all of you know. And so we're seeing definitely an increase in swimmers at our pools. ABYSA is doing their summer camp at the sports park because they can't do that at JBL. So we're busy there during the day. We have our typical summer tournaments at the sports park, very busy as well those, because there's limited fields in the county in general, so. Sports park again is extra busy, and Lake Julian has been busy as well. Lots of folks getting out on the water, barbecuing, fishing, that type of. I think that's it for me.
To stay on Lake Julian for just a moment, did want to let you know that General Services did have an approved project out at Lake Julian for the repaving of Lake Julian Park. Due to the impacts of Hurricane Helene and the amount of stormwater damage that we are now seeing as a result of that, they had some stormwater measures, but now we're trying to really get them to amp those up. Because right now, just so you know, what's happening is on the front side of Lake Julian, we had around 100 trees that fell down. And so when it rains torrentially, there's a great deal of runoff that is clogging up the system that is out there. And so we're doing our best to try to be good stewards of that park and try to maintain it to the best of our ability. So I did want to make sure that you were aware of that.
Can I add one last thing? I think we might have mentioned it last time, but we talked about master planning. We are still working to get that back going, and we'll keep y'all updated when that happens.
Yeah. I had that written down as well. So thank you very much for that. There was a question, just to go straight into, we do have vacancies on the Recreation Advisory Board. We've had a meeting with some folks here that are going to be on the committee to go through all of those applications and then rate them in order to get some new folks to come on so that we have a full advisory board. And then what we are really hoping to do once we have that, we had an advisory board retreat that was scheduled, and that was going to be in October 3rd, if you remember. and the purpose of that was really to kick off, how to get the advisory board more in the advisory role and activated and taking on some of the projects that we have going on in terms of advocating for things and being more a part of really moving some of these things forward and getting us out of the habit of just simply replying to you all about things that are happening, but getting you more really actively involved and moving forward. And we're going to start that off as soon as we get these new board members. We will have a retreat, and then we'll start having conversations about how we change the way that this advisory board is moving so that it's becoming more hands-on and active, and we're supporting each other in that way.
Do you expect that to be this fall?
Yes, 100%. I expect that to be this fall. I have high expectations.
We, in terms of a timeline, we are hoping to have our recommendations by July 31st. We then submit those for a request for board action on by August 4th. And then I believe it's somewhere in the August 15th-ish range. There will be a board meeting where we recommend where those are recommended, and hopefully the board approves those. And then in September, hopefully we have a full advisory board.
Nice. Before we go on, I want to jump to, are there any board updates? Are there anything that you all have, anything that you have going on in your communities that we need to know about, or anything that you think is pertinent that you would like us to look into or be a part of, or those types of things? So I just want to give a space, if you've got anything in particular that's going on that you would like us to know about or be a part of.
I have a question on a park
Yeah,
that
please.
was in the Candler community. And this was when I first joined the
Mhm.
advisory council. And it was gonna be called
Orchard Street.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And I have an answer for that. So that was a part of, that was part of the HMGP. That was a hazard mitigation site that we obtained. And we have been, once you have a piece of property that goes through HMGP, you can have minimal development. So we have been working with Greenworks, and they submitted a proposal to have a orchard out at Orchard Street, a container orchard where they are growing trees and then they're able to be transplanted into other locations. And so we have just finalized that agreement with them and are in conversation about the rollout of that. But we have an agreement and it is Orchard Street Orchard. And it will be open to the public as well. But Greenworks will be who is over that. We have a license agreement with them for that property to be able to do that. And they'll have a little walking path out there as well.
So will that affect the our flea market that pops up on the weekend?
I think I think that the pop-up market is outside of that. I think it's to the left
Yeah, it's
of
not
that
a
a little
pavement
bit.
area.
Yes, yeah. So I think the answer is no.
It's outside.
It's outside of it. But yeah, it is, yeah.
Where that guy's living in his camper, that's the property now.
Yeah. So, yeah, so they,
Whatever happened to that?
so that's it. And I just saw something where they're planning on like really getting that orchard developed within a year. So it'll take them a little bit of time to be able to get saplings and do all of what they need to do out there to get that going.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you. All the little things, forget about. Anything else that you all have or you have going on in community that people should know about?
Not that people
ahead.
should know about, but I
No,
can
but
share
please,
that we are doing like a participatory design process with folks in our neighborhood for the small little park that I think
Oh,
you've been
yes.
to.
Mhm.
I don't know who else. Yeah, James Vester Miller. We
Yeah,
had our
that's great.
opening. And it's an acre, so it's not a large piece, but a lot of it's in the flood and goes down.
Yes.
So we've been working over the last couple months with some architects and other folks that are consultants coming in from out of town to work
Nice.
with our team there. So be curious to see what comes from that process
For
and we'll keep
sure.
you all updated about.
Yeah,
Yeah, use space and get
Yeah.
like community input on that. So
that's
excited.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Way to bring in a new park to that community. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we're trying.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Well, with that, this is Lena's last meeting with us. And so we really have appreciated you being a part. You've been on the front end of the development of this advisory board and what it could be, both of you, yeah, and really like appreciate coming and contributing and having a say in things and representing as we've been trying to get ourselves launched out and really just appreciate everything that you've done. And we have a little certificate of appreciation for you. So thank you very much for everything. We've appreciated your contribution and we hope that you still will utilize our parks and come to our events and feel free. You are welcome to attend our meetings anytime you just would like to come and join us.
You like my sandwich? I want my sandwich.
There you go. So yes,
Yeah.
thank you for that. We appreciate everything that you've done to contribute and appreciate you doing this. So thank you that. With that, the next advisory board meeting is September the 9th, and it'll be at the Recreation Service Office, which is at 46 Valley Street. So we will be meeting over there. And with that, if nobody has anything else, I just have is there a motion to adjourn? And a second? Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time and give you back 10 minutes. Thank you so much.
Yeah.